It's Monday, it's October 9th, 2023. Technically, on the calendar, it says the Sons of Italy calendar and the United States of America calendar, or at least in New York. It says it's Columbus Day. Um, Typically, they call Columbus Day an Italian American, it's a heritage thing. I'm just biologically, physiologically at the moment, I'm in New York. This is what my son looks like at photon levels. Um, I spent the morning on surveillance camera at the local food store working. But I left my shift, and for the last few days, not only have I put on weight, more weight, which I don't know where this is coming from, a shift in weight. They have me taking something called phosphates because they said my phosphate level is down. Whatever powder they're asking me to put in the drink, I'm gaining this immense amount of weight. I can see it here. I can see it in my body, and my legs feel like very like rigid, and I'm not walking correctly. Like I'm walking like there's almost like no fluid. It's almost like the fluid in my body is not moving between the plasma and the intracellular matrix is off. That's really what it feels like. And it's giving me problems with mobility. So I stood there and I was able to get through a 4.5 hour shift, but it is very painful. And it's not natural. It's not normal. It's not natural, and I don't know what the trigger is that's causing it, which is even more frightening. At the same time, in the local news, I'm going to show they have up today the opening of the parade of Columbus Day. Now, my father informs me that in Italian history that he can verify, the portion of Italy that his family is from belonged to Italy at one point, then it was reboundary lined, and the Alps then went to the Austrian Hungarian Empire. And at some point after World War One, he thinks, is when it went back into belonging with Italy. Now I'm looking at the dais and I see two modern Italian Americans that I would consider. And then there's one that clearly does not fit the Italian. I don't know why it's at the dais. I don't know why it's speaking in front of the flags. I don't know. It does not make sense whatsoever. It's not part of their genealogy. It's not part of their heritage. I mean, like in Italian, you would say it's zingari. It's like I don't have a better word for it. It's either that, the gypsies, like the travelers, but it's not part of the family. So I'm watching it, and I'm like, I can't watch this. I taped it because I watched my Irish side, and I wanted to introduce my son. And when I watched the St. Patrick's Day Irish parade, they were real Irishmen, like, and they looked Irish sitting in front of all three of them. And so that was enjoyable. But this, I'm like, it doesn't look right. It doesn't look authentic. It looks changed and altered and not for the better. They have Sandra Bookman sitting there, which I'm going to put up. Who invited her to the Italian American? It makes no sense. And then Lewis informs me that they're calling this Columbus Day. I'm looking, it looks like it has a Dominican flair to it. It's got Columbus in it. I'm thinking Columbia, and that's a whole different set of colors in a flag. And I'm just like, something's not sitting right. And Lewis made a different mention about who the real first American was, and he has a very different name starting with a V, and it ain't Columbus. So I'm like, all right. So I'm watching this. That's disturbing. Yesterday, something called a Hamas, like, bombed something called an Israel. I have no idea what that's about. But when I see their identity on the news, like, this is somebody who's never been to Israel, never, doesn't really know anybody from Israel. And I've met people that say they're from Israel. I have no way of verifying it. And they are sitting here, and I'm looking at who they're saying the Israelis are and who they're saying the Palestinians are. And from what See the BS is portraying on video log, I can't tell the difference. If they weren't holding a banner or flag, I could not tell. Their identities are so similar from just in a crowd. It's hard to tell. And so I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And here I am in New York, where I'm having trouble with the New York landscape identity of what's gathering in large quantities and calling themselves New Yorkers. I'm still in this monetary system at United States with some agreement with Federal Reserve on the note system. This particular one happens to be US Treasury. Of course, Jackson has a different one, and Grant has a whole nother set of followers. And then George Washington has whatever he has on the back of that symbolic piece of linen. Um, so there's that. So I'm concerned about the health, the medicine, and being able to get the correct care that I need in New York at this point. I just saw a doctor by the last name of Kang. He did an MRI of my knee, which has been bothering me. When he calls me, there's actually a palpable lump on the distal portion of the femur, superior anterior to the knee. And he didn't even mention that when he called and did a teledoc appointment. He says I have fluid in the back of my knee and partial and like the beginning stages of arthritis. I'm like, that's not even the area that is problematic. I said what we were looking for and what I was looking for answers for was the lump that's palpable on my quadricep. And he says the MRI didn't show anything. I'm like, I can feel it. How does the MRI? You're like the best. He even said it was the best diagnostic equipment. If the MRI didn't pick up on it, it's nothing. This is the level of care that I'm able to get in New York, which is not really care whatsoever. Um, Quality of care, quality of life's gone down, quality of care's gone down. It's a real disaster. And so now they started some war. Israel actually declared that they're in war now, which is frightening. Um, and then they alert me that the Hindu people, whoever they are, in my life frame, like not like ancient civilizations built these grand, beautiful mausoleums and structures. Like, no, they just opened some new, and they have it on the television, some new structure that they hired all sorts of artisans to build in New Jersey. I'm like, what? So now I'm looking at that because that goes with the timeliness of this electronic funds transfer problem that I'm encountering while I'm in New York at multiple different stages and levels, which at national security is of utmost concern to myself, especially with these triggers or the healthcare. It's almost like it feels like the medical care's been affected, and I don't know if it's via like biopharmaceuticals. I mean, like, they did a really large round of funding in the 90s, and like they made big markets out of this stuff, and I don't know where they took that source funding, and what kind of shops they opened up, and if those are now the big names that are problematic for my restoration of health, which is what I need. So this is what Columbus Day Parade looks like in this the 79th annual. I've never seen it before. This is the first time I'm ever turning it on. And as the first time ever turning it on, to see this image, I'm like, it doesn't even look like, I mean, like 2 out of the 3 look like Italian Americans. The last one looks African. Like I don't have a better word for it, but it definitely does not look like it's from the boot.
Afternoon right here in New York City. The performers are ready, the floats are assembled, and the crowds of spectators have lined Fifth Avenue as we get ready to bring you the coverage this year of the spectacular annual parade and celebration of Italian culture. And opening today's festivities with a special performance of the Star Spangled Banner is the United States.
Now, while I've been in America, the Irish have not welcomed me into that level of genealogy and heritage, and the Italians have not welcomed me into that level of genealogy or heritage. I'm like orphaned in this city, and I don't really know how to survive whatever it is that the two of them are up to, along with whatever else has arrived.
States 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing Band.
And there's some kind of technology glitch here. I don't know what happened.
Today is the day that we celebrate being Italian American.
Being Italian American is more than pizza and Frank Sinatra.
It's tradition.
This day is all about celebrating our ancestors and the traditions that make us who we are.
Today, spend the day like an Italian American.
Start the morning with a cappuccino.
And here we go.
And welcome to ABC7's coverage of the 79th Columbus Day Parade. Wow, what a stirring way to kick things off. Gives me goosebumps this morning, and it's not just because of the autumn weather. A special thank you to the Marine Aircraft Wing Band for a tremendous kickoff to this year's festivities. Great to have you in this afternoon. I'm Mike Marza.
Buongiorno a tutti. I'm Sandra Bookman, and we've got the pleasure once again to have with us a man who needs no introduction, Joe Piscopo. Welcome back. You are looking great.
Oh, thanks so much. Thanks, Sandra. Great to be here. So proud to be here.
Yeah, always so dapper. And what I learned this morning is even on the radio, you show up like this, which is, it's hard to be on the other side.
I dress up for the radio. It's sad, but true. Sad, but true.
Looking forward to it. This year, the wonderful and charitable organization behind all this, the Columbus Citizens Foundation, recognizing some inspiring members of the community for service to others, which is just really, it brings you back to the main reason why we're here, so much celebration.
Exactly. Joe, talk to us a little bit about what this day means to you and really to all Italian Americans.
I'm just so...
And again, I can't even watch this because I'm like, it's no longer Italian American Day. It's no longer Italian American Deus. It's the voices. It's And then I look at how authentic the Irish were on St. Paddy's Day. Like, I'm proud to have sat through all 4 hours of that tape recorded because they did such a great job. Here, I'm like, I'm 2 minutes in and I can't watch it. I just won't. And then to find out that while that's going on and representing Italian American heritage, this was being built like brand new, like out of nowhere, like not an ancient cultural site. Like this happened in my life frame in New Jersey. Never heard of it, never knew it was going on. And now they're opening it, and it's something to do with something called a Hindu. No idea what that is.
Largest Hindu temple outside of India now stands in central New Jersey. The official opening on Sunday was marked with a grand dedication ceremony. The Ashram is the second biggest Hindu temple on earth. A massive stone structure in Mercer County took more than 10 years to build and spans more than 183 acres. It's lined with intricately handmade statues and carvings of stone from all over the world. In the dedication ceremony video, the temple elaborated on all of the work that made the awe-inspiring structure possible.
Over 1.9 million cubic feet of stone were extracted from quarries around the world. Thousands of containers of stone were shipped to Rajasthan, India, where skilled artisans used the ancient Indian traditional art form of carving to transform lifeless blocks of stone into works of art.
More than 12,000 volunteers contributed millions of hours to build the temple. Volunteers say the reason Robbinsville was chosen as a location for the campus was because of how central it is to places like Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and New York City, allowing people to visit more easily.
Well, an update this morning for people.
Israel just declared war. I'm just saying there's another headline, and my health is deteriorating while I'm in New York while all of this is going on. Now here, this also is going on. Continuing coverage in New York while that temple is being built, while the Italian-American dais no longer looks Italian-American. There's, I don't know what joining them. I don't have an identity. It's some part of the zingity. I'm watching this, and the public figure that someone put into office in this administration in New York, which is Mayor Eric Adams, he actually left his post in New York as a public figure, traveled to Latin America, Colombia, Mexico, and a couple of other places on his Latin tour, while holding a New York City public office. Again, I don't know how this works. Is he a foreign agent? It seemed like a mayor was a very localized managerial position within the umbrella of the United States of America. Why is he all of a sudden doing foreign service work and leaving the country while holding a New York City official position? On whose authority?
On the air, online, and on our free mobile app.
6:38, Mayor Adams is now speaking about his 4-day visit to Latin America. He shared his experience on the latest episode of Face the Nation.
It was extremely important, and this is my style of governance, and I needed to see.
But see, his style of governing seems to be breaking some kind of internal code or internal law that the United States and the Federal Reserve have and restricts, so we don't cause international conflict accidentally, or at least we keep it to a minimum. I mean, why is he not forbidden from travel while holding public office as a mayor inside of New York City? Why is he just free to leave? And travel internationally. New York is a hub of where the UN meets. If he has to meet with some international something, they can fly into New York and he can meet there on the hallowed ground of New York City, internal, domestic continental area of North America, why is he leaving the state and going to some unrecognized state and some outside territory? That seems like a very big violation, and I'm very concerned because I don't know what it really means. But I do know my health is being harmed while all this excess stuff is going on.
Firsthand, well, why are we seeing the flow, and speak with the leaders there to see exactly what was taking place? And it was an eye-opener for me.
Adams made stops in Mexico, Colombia, and Ecuador, including a visit to the Darien Gap, a dangerous transit point between North and South America for migrants.
Well, the MTA is once again expanding its tapping.
So that's Mayor Adams. Then they have this guy on. He's a guy. He's, again, he doesn't look Federal Reserve and he doesn't look United States of America, but he's something that's living inside New York, inside United States of America. And he calls himself Cory Booker. They call him a senator. I don't know how. Maybe a House of a Representative. What house? I don't know. He's not like a White House representative, although maybe that's what they call it. Again, I don't really know how the linguistics work, but it gets very confusing if this particular piece gets aired internationally and they're misrepresenting themselves as senators. Senator to what? You don't look like a senator's son. You don't look like a president's son. You don't look like a relative of the reigning, like, presidential, like, we have a national brand for presidential look in this area of United States of America and Federal Reserve. It's on the monetary. So for these people to be calling themselves senators gets a little confusing because that's a United States of America term. And so, and this person's calling himself a senator, and he's also calling himself Cory Booker, and he was going outside of the country as well. And I'm like, again, this seems like violations, and this seems like this could be catastrophic. Why is he leaving if he's holding public office? Okay, so here's this.
Israel safely after.
All safe in Dubai and are expected to arrive sometime today.
Senator Cory Booker says he and his staff left Israel safely after arriving Friday for a summit. The New Jersey Democrat described rushing to a bomb shelter in his hotel.
I was jogging behind me in the old city when I got an urgent call from my chief of staff. There were children and elderly families, many Americans. There was a sense of fear and worry.
Booker was scheduled to speak tomorrow in Tel Aviv at the Summit on Regional Economic Integration.
And Governor Hochul says she's...
I don't know what to say. I don't. And I don't know what to say because while Mayor Adams is touring Latin America, even though he's a domestic, small, I mean, like, large city in as far as United States of America terms go, and like able to manage the city in some managerial whatever, for whatever he was elected for, I'm not really sure, or how he got elected, I'm not really sure. But then for him to travel to Latin America seems like against the rules at federal and at states level, since we only have 48 states. Like, they may call other things states, but in the United States of America, for this territory of North America, and within the Federal Reserve System, with the U.S. Capitol and all of the luxuries that they like to do business with, U.S. Treasury, U.S. Capitol, all that, there are only 48 recognized domestic continental states. And then the outside states, I have no idea how or what they call them in relation. But it gets really confusing and messy when I see this going across the news media and being pumped into New York, and I'm seeing misrepresentations and like this freedom to travel. It's like they're like reporting on themselves, and I'm just sitting here like, oh my God. And then to hear that Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu declares war, that they've been attacked in Israel, I'm just like, I mean, like, parts of the world, like, I don't know what goes on in Africa. I don't know what goes on in the Middle East, but Israel's part of the Middle East, and I don't know what their conflict is. I don't. I'm in New York, and I'm dealing with their children traveling and educating and conducting themselves here, and I have no idea what their desires are elsewhere, but I do feel the effects of what's going on here.
Right now, Israel at war, the death toll climbing with more airstrikes overnight.
People here are fighting to save Jewish lives. Free, free Palestine!
Here at home, thousands of demonstrators on both sides.
And then this also gets confusing. In my life frame, the pictures of one of the wars, I think it's World War II, where they say, the local folklore is that they used the labels that the Germans were exterminating the Jews, and during this thing called the Holocaust. When I see the photos of the execution camps, and then I look to see what is calling themselves Jews in this storyline, they look like two different populations, but yet they're sharing this label and this holy whatever, like, and then that linguistically and like over time, but over the Atlantic Ocean, and then it's almost like watching what's calling itself Italian Americans. There's 2 out of the 3 are actually like could be Italian Americans, and then the one that clearly is not Italian American sitting at the same dais. But now I'm watching through the lens of what did they present as historic reference during that time that were getting gassed in gas chambers during that horrific event, and that Jew looked very different than what they're calling a Jew today. I mean, this side and this side, they look like they're the same family and they're having some kind of family feud. I mean, I cannot discern a difference. If you put one side by side in New York, I would not be able to tell who's for what. And then I don't know what fuels this level of hatred between the two of them. I have no idea. And they look like they're part of the same family. So it seems family feudal to me.
Sides taking to the streets. We have live team coverage with reports from Tel Aviv and the tri-state area. A live look outside as we start out the work week. The cold fall air is settling in this morning. Good morning on this Monday, October 9th. I'm Mary Calvi.
And I'm Chris Raggy.
So this is what's plaguing me today that I hear is going on elsewhere. While over the last few years, I've been having alternating health effects, and my weight just mysteriously, I'm having trouble metabolically and electrolytes I'm having trouble with. And then sometimes the specific to relative gravity is off. But again, and that kind of level stuff, I know that they speak about it in a sci-fi way of Star Trek, which is the only reason why I just discovered that even exists. I try to identify like what my current situation is in that like faraway fantasy way, because I know somebody's like, there's the aerospace program, and then there's like I don't know. I mean, again, is that part of the royal military as opposed to like the soldier military in highly specialized and a different level of overachiever? Most likely. But I don't know, stuck amongst the level of service members that I'm at this point, or lack of service members at this point, I don't know how to communicate it safely or properly. without, like, again, like, I'm not trying to be insubordinate, but I'm trying to be informative, and I do have perspective. But there's more serious things like the fact that I can't even walk after a 4-hour shift of standing on my legs. And it's not like just my health. I was having a conversation with Lewis about this. I'm like, I'm sitting in this supermarket and I'm watching what I would call my community now, because it's my local food store where I could take a bus, public transportation to get there, which I did yesterday. And I'm watching what's coming in the store, and I'm thinking to myself, for the most part, the population coming in that store, whether it's seen on surveillance camera or whether from me at the register, if these are my local demographic of what is congregating in and surrounds me now, what is their health like? Are they having mental acuity issues? Like, is there a slowdown in the conscious cognition and ability to perform simple tasks? Because I know since after COVID, and since walking through, I kept getting hit with this gas out in the local streets, which I reported to the FDNY. They came with some kind of metric or telemetry, and they I don't know the right word, some diagnostic tool, and their alarms went off, and then they made note of it. But it had been several weeks of my reporting of it as I was walking, and it's out in the air. It smelled like sulfur. It was horrible. But again, if these are chemical attacks on my local population, myself being part of this, and then I notice like my my sharpness and my acuity. I'm not as sharp as I used to be. Like, I used to be sharp as a tack. Like, I could multifunction, I could multitask. I mean, I was very efficient as a person and as a human. I just don't feel like I have that same level of ability anymore. I feel like something has stunted that. Like, something's happened and I don't know how to put it into words. So now I'm in the general public and I'm watching over, I guess you could call it in the situational, like the herd of what's in my community of HERD. It's like a shepherd and a herd of public health. And I'm trying to watch over the older population, the people that are my age, and then the younger, and how they react to situations, but also, I mean, I see some people are actually, they have like tremors and shakes. Um, so I'm just watching over all of this. I know I'm not the only one that's affected, but it is concerning. I also heard that the British call some of the food that we consume something I had never heard of before, something called an ultra artificial processed diet. Um, and so, again, some of the chemical alterations or changes over the long term, I don't know if there's an acceptable value and range in chemistry. I don't know if one of the other TV shows were showing something about a private equity. I know financial markets has something to do with it. They gave an example when I was doing an analysis of a furniture store that then grew really like big, and then somebody came in and did some kind of private equity, they called it, and they essentially took out all of this debt and bankrupted the company, um almost like bringing liquidity in, but I don't know who these players are. But these are like large white collar financial crimes. But then it hurts the public in the level that I'm in. So I'm watching over the health. I don't know if there's something with the chemical formula of certain processes in the food, like the cheese, the emulsifiers, the and the healthy levels and ranges of them. I'm not sure if any of that has been disrupted, and I don't know who's managing over that. They, under this Adams administration, they have something called a Vashon who's calling himself the city's doctor. I'm like, yeah, really? Great. Then you fail because my health is failing since you've been on. And then this is what's going on in conflict in Israel.
In control of 4 sites from Hamas fighters. The sounds of missiles echoing across much of Israel this weekend, with more than 4,000 lining up the sky. The aftermath of deadly attacks, leaving buildings like this police station in ruins. Israeli officials say many of the Hamas militants, designated as terrorists by the U.S., arrived by sea and air using paragliders. The Prime Minister said his country is now engaged in a long and difficult war, hitting back along the Gaza Strip. With hundreds of airstrikes and demolished this 14-story building that Israel says was used by Hamas, the air assault a response to the deadly Hamas strike on Saturday. The Israeli Rescue Service says at least 260 people were killed at a music festival in the south. This mom told CNN.
Then I was watching a TV show called Community. It was season 5, episode 6, and it almost looked like a spoof on something else. It had the GCC janitorial committee. They wanted to put up a cork board. They were talking about push pins, and I'm like, it had a very whatever feel to it. And so I was watching that this morning. It happened to be in succession. I've been watching all the episodes straight through. I didn't just pick any random ones. And today it just happened to align with whatever's going on here. And so this is just like a whole culmination and like a broader painted picture of what's going on health-wise, as my health's been deteriorating, and what's going on at like a world snapshot. I already did the monetary system, and I'm just going to pull up the local flag or banner. Okay, this is the flag at this point. So that's a full picture of where we're at on this day. And this is Columbus Day 2023. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.